So thank you again to the three of you, to all of you, and I give the floor to you guys, starting with Nat.
Thank you, Alexandra. Thank you, everybody, for being here, and of course, the two of us, we feel very honored and very happy to know a little bit more with the next steps, let's say. So, for those who haven't seen the movie, did all of you watch the movie? Yes. So it will be so easier. My first question then will be, it has been a long way for you to find the museum, the public museum, as you choose to do it, and many years of negotiation, and you are a king of these negotiations. I was curious to think what was the condition you asked this museum in counterpart of this great donation. What is the wish list?
First, I'd like to thank Alexandra for the invitation and that she started up this fair, which is growing healthy. I'm also happy to even see two artists here whose work we saw in the film. But now let me turn to your question, which is my wish list to a museum.
Yes.
As I said in the film, did not know how and when I would bring the collection to China, and around the year 2010, I started to mention in many interviews in China in particular that I would be prepared to give my collection away to a museum, and for very long there was no reaction within China. Within China, mainland China, if I would have mentioned, the same idea in London, I don't know about Paris or New York, of course I would have an immediate reaction, but not so in China. But I knew there were several big projects on the drawing board of several cities, and I felt it's about time to do that step, considering my old age. So I was looking for, of course, a major museum. My first impulse was Beijing or Shanghai. This proved to be very difficult for a number of reasons. One could write a big book about these various negotiations, and almost by mistake, almost all of a sudden Hong Kong entered into the game. Actually, I had paid a visit to Shenzhen. They wanted to discuss about an exhibition, and for some reason the news in the media in Shenzhen were I just gave my collection away to the Shenzhen Museum. And then a person from Hong Kong approached me and said, did you also consider Hong Kong? That's how Hong Kong also entered the game, and so I had 3 discussions. And to make it very short, the basic issue which made it not possible for China, both cities, was that I could not get a clear answer to my question about censorship. I said, I accept censorship, it's a reality, but I need to know the rules. I need to be able to assess what can be shown and what will disappear in the cellars of such an institution. And I could never get a clear answer. Maybe there is no very clear instruction. There are very vague laws, and the laws are, of course, written in such a way that they would enable the government to intervene at will. but nobody could really give me a precise answer. Also, I had some concerns, and maybe that's something Pi Li can talk about, some concerns about the professionality of Chinese contemporary institutions. Of course, the Chinese have a very high reputation, much experience when it comes to antiques, running museums for that purpose. But when it comes to contemporary art, with all these weird materials, formats, different media, installation, multimedia, there is still a lack of professionalism. So then there was Hong Kong, very aggressively approaching me. They had this huge museum on the drawing board, but no content at the time. And to them it was very important to have a major exhibition to give it the core and the strategy. And of course the donation made them to the #1 institution in the world for Chinese contemporary art. And if they do it right, going forward, nobody can challenge them when it comes to that topic. So for me it was important that I come finally to your answer, to your question. For me, very important that the collection is in China. Hong Kong is also China. And I mentioned it in the film, some 40 million mainland visitors visit Hong Kong, and thus they will have an opportunity to see their own art in M+, which they in fact don't really know. So my goal was pretty much reached.
Thank you so much for your answer. And then I will ask you, Pi Li, what is your mission of M+ is this kind of pharaonic museum? Maybe you can precise how big it is, because I think we saw some images, but it's a really huge project. And so I was curious, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, and everybody could ask questions at the end, of course, how big it is, and what is the mission of M+, because Uli Sigg insists on the fact he chose to give to a public museum and not to create his own foundation, which will be, I'm sure, very much easier. So, please.
I also should thank the AHL now inviting me to be here and have such nice opportunity to introduce the M+ as a museum project. So M+ is like more means like museum plus, more than a museum. So this was a museum project initiated in the later 1990s when Hong Kong has been handed over to mainland. So they use a piece of the artificial land and try to build up this kind of all the cultural institutions there, such including the opera house, large theater, contemporary art museum, and most recently the Forbidden City Museum, where have one new branch there. So that's kind of the area, like a cultural zone. So the M+ was like, there were several rounds of the discussion in Hong Kong. And also some of them may notice that kind of the political tension in between the Hong Kong and the mainland and Beijing. And somehow that also make M+ project very interesting. That on the first day, M+ already committed to be an international museum. So not like any other museum projects happen in Asia. Most of them, when they initiated, was like the nationalistic, the kind of the discourse. So based on that kind of the vision, I think M+ first is a museum in Hong Kong and for Hong Kong, and mainly is a museum which can not only about the visual arts, but more about the visual culture. So we are not only collecting the visual art, we also have the architecture, design, moving image, popular culture, and the ink art. That's one of the major things for this region. The region. So media-wise, that's something we want to do more than a museum. The one. And second of all, the museum projects, like we more want to build up this kind of the international discourse, which like so we are also besides having such glorious this kind of the Chinese art donation, we are also very ambitious to build up this kind of the contemporary visual culture being displayed in future in museum. So same like that, we can think about the strategy for the M+ collection where like several circles. In the middle will be Hong Kong and China. So more farther you will see East Asia. And then you go another circle will be Asia and beyond. So that's the way. So same like if you go to Center Pompidou here, you will see a lot of like contemporary art discourse here. But somehow they're more focused on French art, or European art. If you go to the MoMA, they may have the same or similar discourse where they have more specific on Middle American things. So that's the way we want to achieve. So with the museum, and so the museum is not only about the building, as we already know, there's a booming about this kind of the building the museums in China, in Beijing and Shanghai. But the museum is also about content. So on that level, we are very proud that in 2012 we already have the Uli Sigg donation charge, which including around 1,610 pieces on the covered year from the 1974 to 2010. So that's already become a backbone of our collection. So now it's like 2017, after 5 years, the whole M+ collection now we have around 6,000 pieces of them, and among them half is from the Chinese contemporary art. So that's the way the geographically. So the building, I think the building we are very proud. I think that's where the most ambitious museum project happened in the first 2 decades in this century. The building is designed by a Swiss architect, and the building, the whole size of the building will be 65,000 square meters. So 65,000, a little bit bigger than Bogu, and among them there are 13,000 square meters will be the exhibition space, the galleries, and the rest will be the conservation center, library, office. So among these 13,000 square meters, I think 2/3, let's say 8,000 square meters will be using for show the collection display, so we call it permanent show. And then another 2,000 or 3,000 we are using for the temporary show, blockbuster show. So that's more like the way. So we are very proud about now the building. If you have chance come to Hong Kong doing the net, and you will see the building. You will have like 5 stores. So like we are in the halfway. So by the end of the next year, I think by November 2018, we will got the occupation permit, and we are moving into that building at the beginning of the 2019. So we need around half year or 7 months to prepare the opening. So we are now targeted opening by the 2019 end of 2019. And for the first year when we opened the museum, we will just only show the collection. So that's our strategy. And we have and that's also part of my work. For the first 3 years, we will have like several Uli Sigg donation show. And the first show we will more doing this collection show by because the question is so important. So we basically just will show a textbook work. So we make a survey show or chronological show about the Chinese contemporary art. So that will be the first year. So after the first year, we have another several exhibitions will be more systematically, which also reflect our academic interest, but as well as Uli's the input for his collection. So several subjects we may be touched, like landscape, like calligraphy, or these kind of things. Yeah, I leave it.
Thank you so much. And so, as a collector, do you have a word to say in the curating the way your collection will be presented?
Well, I'm only co-curator of the opening display.
had a word to say.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah, so our understanding is that the space will be somewhere 3,000 to 5,000 square meters, and we assume that in maybe 3 rotations in this space, one may get an idea about the collection. So that's the concept at this moment in time.
I think it's very interesting the process to how to show the collection, because because we are now able to put all the content, the list of the collection on the internet. So everybody has to know that the donation. We have so many ways to show the presentation, which is also the challenge for us. So like when the museum opens, what kind of the narratives people want to know that more. So we have 2 ways. When the museum opens, we always want to show we have such good collection. So, and we also want to show, we want to build up a kind of a very canonic, very chronological discourse. If you know the situation in China so far no museums in China can present such a comprehensive history of Chinese art through the solid collection. As you know, as for M+, our most ambitious is like we really want to take the leading role of the Chinese art in the universe, and we have set the backbone to give us the chance. So when we have this kind of the chronological narrative, we present it for a year, then for a certain semantic show can go more deep. And we are very happy to have Uli as a co-creator with us. We have a whole curatorial team there, but Uli somehow so far is the people knows his collection the most. So his knowledge, his experience are very important for us.
Yeah, afterwards as well, pretty. Anyway, I wanted also to ask you, there will be also a book published, because as you, in the film it was shown that the fabulous books, at least for us European, about Mahjong, so I'll show you the book. And because, you know, as a matter of fact, for Chinese contemporary art now, they were missing such point, so they will be publishing as well. And do you think it will be also a way to think the recent history of China?
Yeah, we definitely are now working on publications, but yes, as you can show, the Mahjong book is already become a Bible for Chinese contemporary art for many years. And then later on, they also have some other very influential publications, such as the landscape, Shanshui, secret sign, and that shows. So for us, once we open the museum, we have several. Okay, very honestly, we are really struggling that what kind of publication we want to make. We are told that by our museum consultant that any book, the collection book, is very difficult to sell. People just don't want to buy such a heavy book back. They always like some small book for the commercial interest. But even though, I think finally our decision is we will make a comprehensive book for the whole collection by article order of the artist's name. So each artist will have their representation in the book. The rationale in behind that we really want to make people know the whole face of the collection. So in that level, we were also invited, and plus the curatorial team, as well as the scholars, as well as the Chinese experts, to contribute the entries for each artist. So you will not only see the work, you will also see how the work can lead this kind of more research and lead more understanding for the contemporary culture to China.
Of course, I'm very happy that there will be an extensive book. As I mentioned in the film, the canon of Chinese contemporary art is not yet written, but it is in the process to be written, because with a 40 years horizon, as we do have now, it becomes realistic to talk about these issues. And I only regret it takes so long for the museum to open, and I regret that there will be a gap between, say, 2012 and about now, when Pi Li could restart to collect the very young art. So that will be visible, but there's nothing we can do. And the second thing I regret, and that's why this book is important to me as well, except the Museun book, all the other books could never enter China. So in mainland China, nobody knows the exhibitions we did over time, which were, say, very deep dives, not just overview exhibitions into some topics. And even the Museun book was only on the bookshelf maybe a month. And then the that time publisher was told to take it off the shelf, and that was the end of distribution. So this book, in that sense, has a mission.
Yeah, that was the reason why was the question. And so maybe at that point, I think that I could share with you, if you have any question, they are more than welcome now, and I'm sure you have some. And I wanted to thank you for this. I would love to come to visit in 2019, because to see this Empress augmented museum, and with all these artworks that I have already seen. So thank you so much.
Uli, first of all, hats off, really amazing project, and having that vision so early on and executing on it is amazing. In relation to that, you had a very clear strategy in mind when you started the collection. You said, I want to build, what was the word you used in the film? A document. And I ask, as a collector, if you're building a document, where does your personal taste come in? Does every work that you buy speak to you personally, or not? Do you disregard it because you think this artist is important, the people like him, he should be in the document? That's one question. How do you choose what you buy? The second part of the question is, now that you've donated that and you've achieved that and you continue to support young artists, has that changed, or are you still building the document, or are you now buying for your own taste?
Maybe the easy part first, which is the second part. There is no need for me to continue to collect in an encyclopedic way as I did in the past, because now there is one institution, there are many other institutions, some even here, and there are many private collectors, so they all collect, which was not the case at the time I did it. So things are very different, and that means I now collect what I have personally an interest in, and very often I commission works or I get involved in the creative process. So that interests me now, and now it's about my own taste. That brings me to the first part of your question. It's of course a self-imposed mission to think, to build a collection that is such kind of document as a national institution actually should, but did not do. So this self-imposed mission may have some flaws. Of course, no collection is complete in any case, neither is my collection. Now, I was trying to mirror the art production of China. That's how I would define the focus. So my personal taste has to be in the background. And the questions are that have to be answered. What is important at a certain moment in time to Chinese artists, maybe to one, maybe to several. And then it would have to find a place in this document, in my collection. Of course, we cannot totally disregard personal taste. I mean, that would be an illusion. In the end, you must have some criteria, otherwise you would have to collect everything. So, which I should have done, because according to my own assessment, in the first years I collected, if I would have had it, I did it, I would say $1 million would have bought you the whole art production of China. This is amazing if you consider. So back to how I chose when it comes to subjective criteria, or let me say that first. Yes, I collected many works I personally don't have much of a relation with. These are works I would not purchase for my very own private collection. But they have a place because they may illustrate, document something important, represent something important. But yes, when it comes to personal or subjective criteria, which I cannot deny, then it's beyond, say, this documentation purpose. It's what we all think of, could an artwork surprise us? Does it have a certain energy which we can feel? Does it have formal qualities? Is it the right medium? That's always been an important question to me. Should this be a painting, or should it maybe much rather be a video piece? Or should maybe the artist much rather write an article instead of showing us 1% of some lofty concept? So, issues like that, you cannot deny them.
Maybe we can ask now Didi, what are your criteria to purchase M+, because you're also continuing the story?
I think we did some analysis to Uli Sigg's collection. As we told, as I just said, that from the whole donations covered the year, I think early is 1973, 74, 73, until 2011. That's 1 year before the donation, and we are extremely strong on this kind of transaction after the 90s. And I think realism, political got the other. We are really we have really top criteria of what which you will see after the opening. And then the 80s we are quite strong, because in China we are strong. There are not so many work has been really kept well. So we as Uli collect as many as he kept, so that we can build up this kind of the narrative. This also somehow is a challenge for us. Once this comes from private collection, become a public or institution collection, Uli didn't need to face acquisition committee. You don't need to make the proposal. You decide you just buy. So on that level, we can see we got we have a 12 funding. We have 13 the older Liu. We have some younger Liu. The fabulous work. And I believe by that time, Uli as a private collector, he can take the risk. But for the museum institution, not sometimes we are used the taxpayers' money. We should be extremely selective, picky. Yeah, we should buy right. So that's really a challenge for us. I think we really have to be more ambitious, to do more research. That's the one way. So the museum will take a more active role to do. On the other hand, we also somehow encourage collectors to donate to the young artists trust, and we have this kind of the constant conversation, the dialogue, so people can help us to enlarge that. Somehow, contemporary art is the history for tomorrow. I just back from the Center Pompidou. You can really see how the history by that time, the art by that time will be preserved now. But still, I think for the most of the institutions, how to continue to collect young artists is very difficult question. Not about the money, sometimes really about the questions of did you make a right decision. I think on that level, the anxiety between the institution and the collector are not so much different.
Can I ask if Uli's donation has encouraged more donations from local Chinese collectors, or is the museum using it to build philanthropy among collectors in China?
Yes, the answer is yes. I think it's very positive signal for, I think, like, okay, let's say this. I knew Uli since the 1990s, and Uli, on the first day when I met Uli said, okay, I'm not collecting myself, and I just really will donate some institution in future. I think he said the same thing to most of the Chinese artists, but people were very suspicious at the beginning. We were more thinking about that's a way of the strategy for upping the price, so we don't take that serious until 2012 when the donation really happened, and then it's a great signal for everyone. I mean, so soon after that we received some very nice donation by another Chinese collector named Guan Yi. He donated 37 this kind of earlier conceptual pieces to us, and we just launched a new video. He just talking about how much he has been inspired by Uli for such donation. So that's really changed this kind of the donation culture, not only in Hong Kong but also in China, because there are so many private museums there, and they all think about what's the role, what's the social responsibility for the museum, for a private collector. That's the one thing. And then we also built up another, as I said, we built up an plus new art council. So it's kind of a small young collector group, which they will help us to build up the collection for the artists under years of the 40, and Uli also sits in that committee to share his experience, to guiding this young collector how we can contribute to our collection. So the answer definitely is yes, and it's very positive, very positive influence to the other community in China.
I would not want to contradict what Pi Li says. Yes, it's of course new, and every donation most welcome, and it does happen. On the other hand, I was disappointed to a degree that there is, like in China, not yet much of such a culture of donating. It is my own experience with what I faced as discussions after the donation, where people all thought he has a hidden agenda, he's saving taxes. Well, no, I don't save any tax. Well, it's about appreciation of your existing or remaining collection. I said, no, that's also not the intention. So everyone looking for a hidden agenda. There's maybe not yet enough time to establish for such culture to be established. And in Hong Kong, it took quite some time, and there are major collections there, but they haven't really come forth. So maybe they want to see the museum first, and I think Pi Li's initiative to set up this group and to establish such a thinking will help.
I think that the donation and the commitment of the collector is always a chicken and egg. So people want to see the commitment of the institution first, then they will give you a donation. But for the museums, we want to receive the donation, then we can have our commitment. So that's what I can say that without Uli's donation, I don't think M+ will take that commitment for Chinese contemporary art. So I think that's also the positive influence for the whole donation. At least people see the commitment of M+ to the Chinese art. So I think that you are right. People are still waiting to see the museum. They don't want to see the work on the internet. They want to see the work, the collection in the space. Then they will raise up that idea. So chicken and egg.
First, I must say this is really a good occasion to see the film. I think it is a very precious opportunity that Asia now brought us this occasion, and I really enjoyed the film. It was very interesting. And then now I have one question for Uli and one question for Pi Li. For Uli, what do you think about contemporary art from Hong Kong? Do you see some similarity from these recent years compared to the some of the critical art that you have collected from China some decades ago or some years ago? Are you collecting contemporary art from Hong Kong now? And for Pi Li, as Uli mentioned, that one of his concern was that this question of censorship in China, and the museums couldn't answer before your collaboration with Amplus. So as curator of Amplus and Amplus as a public museum, how will you ensure that also as maybe there would be tightening control from China over Hong Kong, how will you ensure that there won't be the collection from Uli wouldn't be threatened by such censorship? Thank you.
He loves to give me the microphone first. So, yes, I collect artists from Hong Kong, but I don't go about it in a systematic way as I did about mainland art. I was focusing on mainland, and I also didn't go in the same way about artists in the diaspora as I did about the mainland artists, because my main interest is art that is created in the energy of mainland China in this very specific cultural space. Of course, Hong Kong now has quite a number of very interesting artists after having only a handful of what we would consider contemporary artists for long. Has to do with education system that was kind of very small, and also has to do that there wasn't a market, there wasn't an existence really for more than this handful of artists, but there is very good art created there. Is it comparable to mainland? Maybe now, maybe going forward, yes, because all of a sudden Hong Kong faces also a situation which is politically very tense. And that kind of situation has induced a lot of the art production in the 80s and 90s in mainland China. And actually, it sounds cynical, but that kind of situation can produce very interesting art. So yes, it could go this way. That brings us to that question you addressed to Pi Li, which we will answer shortly. But I just, I keep stating that one main reason why I brought the collection to Hong Kong was that that time government, 2012, used it as a main argument. They told me, why would you bring your collection to mainland China? There is no freedom of speech. We have freedom of speech. So the argument still rests there, and now I will give to Pi Li.
Okay. Yeah, that's a very interesting question, and I try to answer in more clear way. I think that I've been working in Hong Kong for 5 years, since 2012, right after the donation had happened. And I found that somehow I think the political situation in Hong Kong in the last 5 years are extremely interesting. And that's also such rich resources for a lot of great artists up here. As when you have such a country, always have a great artist. But to answer your question, I want to from several layers. The first layer, I would say, the freedom of expression never has been given. You have to fight for it. So not only you have to fighting that in China, as in France, in Paris, there are always kind of the taboo censorship. So there were so many layers there, from be polite, from be diplomatic, from the taboo, then to censorship, to self-censorship, to censorship. So as a museum, as a curator, we should really to dealing this kind of things with more clear. So we never believe that freedom of expression is being given. So you have to fight for that. You have to really to protect that. I say not only in Hong Kong. Now maybe in China it will be more harder, but it's more or less the same. That's the one thing. And the second thing I would say that for me, from my experience as a museum curator, I think sometimes censorship, self-censorship is more dangerous than censorship. Because sometimes, for most of the time in China, I think you have that here. People say, where's the law? But I can show it. And so people never can give you a clear answer. It's like a law. No, because how the censorship happen in China is through the self-censorship. So what I can say is like we should really be careful this kind of if one day kind of self-censorship will happen among creators. So that's the second point to answer your question. And the third point to answer the question, like on the other hand, museum is also an institution to face the public. So museum only have two functions. One function is kind of laboratory for artists. On the other hand, museum is also a public institution to educate or to present the cultural heritage to public. So sometimes the censorship, the freedom of expression become very unclear. Sometimes you even will go to the gray zone. For example, the recent accident that happened, the incident that happened in Wuhan about animals. We can see that it's a pity that how this kind of the arbitration, freedom of expression being eroded by this kind of the internet opinion. So that sometimes we should be really careful. But to answer that, I really like this kind of the quote from the worker at the center which said the museum should be a safe place for the non-safe ideas. So that's something we really want the M+ to play that role. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will have a question for both of you. First, Uli, I'm wondering, we saw one or two otherwise photographs and one from photographs, but how much contemporary Chinese photography was or is part of your collection? And for the museum, to what extent also the M+ will represent and support contemporary photography?
Maybe Pili knows better the exact percentage, but it's quite interesting that when I look at the media mix of the collection, it's pretty much what the production probably may look like in the Chinese cultural space. So photo, I would say probably 15% around that, or more than that. 20% of the collection is photo. So from the beginning I also focused on photo, and photo as earlier in the West didn't gain much attention within China, certainly not for collectors, but we may remember the same situation in the West, maybe 15 to 20 years earlier. So it takes the same track, and I think Chinese photography found its way in all the institutions.
I think we have nearly 20% of the photograph, especially when you go deep into the history of the photograph in China. I think at the end of the 90s, there was a huge new photograph movement, which they keep far away from this kind of reportage, film, or documentary photograph. They really use the photograph as the way to present their concept. We also have another word called the conceptual photograph. And this kind of photograph at the beginning they appeared as kind of a documentation for performance, and then they become to stage the performance and then develop the whole thing. So that's a big movement in the late of the 1990s. And fortunately, we really comprehensively cover that period, from the documentation of the East Village, from the documentation of this kind of the long, this kind of new folk. So that's very important. And to follow your questions, I think the photograph is very important for us. And I think you have for the opening display by the 2019, I think we might have one section like just show this kind of we call the contemporary photograph there. So that's as like one layer, and then we are also keep adding this kind of because Uli collect very comprehensively in the 90s. So we are also trying to collect more work which can give a more better background. For example, we recently collect some earlier photograph about the Maglan group. They are Mark Rue and the Brisson. How this group can represent, can record documentary China before Uli come to China. So that's the way we want to enlarge this kind of the narratives. Yeah.
Maybe the film is somewhat misleading in that sense. It's not representative for my collection, what you see in the film. That wasn't the purpose of the film.
Seems it's time to have a glass.
You're hungry.
Okay, then thank you everybody.